Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of Rise Up. 3 practices for finding our balance and purpose in a post-COVID world. So we had some great interaction yesterday. We loved everything that all of you had to say. Thank you so much for joining us. If you were not able to join us yesterday and you haven't watched the replay yet, no worries. Go watch the replay. It is in either Ashley's group or my own group, and we are happy to have you jump in at any point in time. So I am Dr. Erin Myers. This is Ashley Barnes, and we are the co-founders of the Intuitive Leadership Center. And we just are so honored to be here, really. So the Intuitive Leadership Center, what we've done is we've come together to create a center that focuses on empowering women through the integration of leadership and feminine energy. So we're taking and merging the traditional definition of leadership with feminine energy and taking the benefits that have come from COVID and working to integrate them into this post-COVID world. So let us know that you're here. Hi, Jennifer. We see that you are on. So thank you for doing that. Go ahead and grant StreamYard access if you don't mind. It should be in the top of this post, and that will allow us to see your name. Otherwise, you just show up as Facebook user and we're not sure who's talking. So if you can do that, go ahead and do that. If there's any sort of issue, don't worry about it. Please go ahead, comment, interact. That's what we love about this. And a few more admin items that I want to add in also is that it is a different link every day. So although we'll be going live, make sure that you do pull up the new StreamYard link if you'd like to join us in this actual virtual room that we have going on here. You are welcome. Hi, Shelly. So glad you're here with us again today. Thank you. So go ahead, pull up your workbook. Today, we are going to work on connecting. And so we have some fun content. Day 1, we talked about clearing. We cleared our shoulds. We talked about our values and making sure that our actions are in line with our values. Today, we are going to connect. And what exactly does that mean? Well, I'm going to start by kind of going over the neurological happenings that go on with us on any given day. And I wanted to quickly say one more admin thing. If you are watching the replay, do hashtag replay. We're so happy that you're here watching the recording as well, and we'd love to know that you watched the recording. Okay. I had that banner up to remind myself, and even then I still forgot. I kind of went on my tangent. So at any given time, at any given moment, we have 11 million stimuli that are going on around us, which is just absolutely crazy to think about. So our brains are trying to process 11 million things that are going on around us. But how many do you think our brains can actually process at any given time? Go ahead and write it in the comments. I'd love to know what we think. We'll pause here just for a moment, because I'm sure we have a little bit of a delay on Facebook. Any guesses? Okay. Well, the answer is, there we go. We've got some. Shelly says one thing that our brains can process. It's a little bit more than that. So the good news is we can at least do our 5 senses at any given time. So we can be smelling things, we can be feeling things, we can be seeing things, we can be hearing things all at once. But it is definitely closer to 1 than it is to 11 million. So the answer is 40. Our brains can only process 40 of those 11 million stimuli. So how do our brains know what to process and what not to process? What do we let through what's known as our perceptual lens? And that perceptual lens kind of acts like a filter. So we have this filter that we've created based on the way in which we grew up, our experience that we had throughout life, our education that we've had, our formal or informal training, the job that we have, the people that we surround ourselves with. All of that creates this perceptual lens. And that perceptual lens can shift as we evolve and go through life. So the unconscious biases that we may have that we're unconscious of, right? That we have, that we don't even know we have, that were put there because of the way in which we grew up or the experiences that we had. Shelly says, oh, good. Good. Yes, 40 at least. So we're good to go there. But those unconscious biases were all created based on the experiences that we had growing up. But as we grow and we expand and we evolve and we learn new things, that changes some of those biases. We become aware of them. They're no longer unconscious, and it changes our perceptual lens. So think of it from that perspective. And here's a great example of that. How many of us have bought a car recently? Anyone? In the last year or so? Ashley, have you? Nope.
Unmuting. Sorry. No, not because I love my car, but it was about 3 years ago.
So if no one has, that's okay. I'm going to mute you, Ashley. There you go. Okay. If no one has recently, that's okay. We just did. We just bought a Dodge Ram. So our F-150 decided it didn't want to be safe on the road anymore. So we had to go ahead and we're forced into purchasing a new car. And think about that. Think about the last time you purchased a new car, or when, oh, your partner did, Shelly. Good. Okay. So what type of vehicle did your partner purchase? It's been about 6 months. That's great. We might have quite a delay on Facebook today, which means I'm going to be sitting here in silence for a little bit, but that's all right. I'd rather have a discursive environment. A Prius. Okay. And once you knew that you wanted a Prius, or once your partner knew that they wanted a Prius, that's okay. Doesn't have to be brand new. I just meant new to you or new to your partner. Once your partner knew that they wanted a Prius, how many Priuses did you and your partner see on the road? I'll say hi to everybody that's just joining us as well. I see the numbers popping up. A lot. Yes. So a lot of times what we experience is when we purchase a new car, make the decision that we're interested in purchasing a new car. It can be a new to you car, which we always do, new to us cars, because of the depreciation value. But you've always had a Prius of some sort. Okay, there you go. So you may not have experienced this as much because your perceptual lens was always geared then, ever since you had Prius, to seeing Priuses. For those of us that are switching brands or looking at upgrading or looking at a new year model, yeah, you've seen a lot of Priuses for 10 years. There you go. What that does is it reframes our perceptual lens to suddenly recognize the logo of the new type of vehicle, or the body shape, or the bumper shape, or the style. And suddenly we begin to see all of that same vehicle on the road. And it's not that everybody suddenly had the same idea as us to run out and buy this new type of vehicle. It's just that our perceptual lens has shifted. So where previously our brains were processing 40 bits of information that did not include that type of car, now we have pushed something else out of the way. Hopefully it was something we didn't need anymore, and put in this new type of car that we are now filtering through, that our brains are now allowing us to see more and more of. And so that is an example of kind of the way in which this perceptual lens can shift. And so that perceptual lens is part of a concept known as neuroplasticity. And yes, I have a PhD, but I do not have a PhD in neuroscience. So if any of you are neuroscientists or in that realm, feel free to chime in at any point in time. But neuroplasticity, what this concept is that our neurons can actually change and shift. And we are continually shifting our neural pathways as we learn and evolve and go through life. And so that when we shift our perceptual lens, we are, no kidding, shifting our neural pathways. And so what we encourage a lot of individuals to do, I know Ashley does this, and we're going to do an exercise that will help us with this, is consciously be aware of what we surround ourselves with, the information that we take in, the books that we read. I'm sure many of us have heard surround yourself with the 5 people that you most aspire to be. And the reason for that is they think differently. there's different information that they put out that you process, and that helps us change our perceptual lens so that we become more like them because we're seeing things differently and more of their perceptual lens. We're listening to things differently, we're interpreting things differently. And so everything we consume, our diet, so to speak, is not just foods. It should also be information because it, no kidding, has a biological effect on our neural pathways and the way our brains process information. And so make sure that as we are striving to be whom we want to be and the goals we want to achieve, that we are changing our diet of information to include things that are in alignment with those goals and who we are striving to be or become. All right, Ashley, I'm going to pass it over to you for the reframing exercise. And I think this kind of goes directly into Dr. Wayne Dyer's quote.
Yes, it does. Thank you, Erin. And this is one of my most favorite quotes because it applies to so many things. And unfortunately, Dr. Wayne Dyer is no longer with us, but this quote does linger. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. So I'm going to let that soak in for a second because I think sometimes you really have to hear that twice or three times. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And like what Erin was saying, we're not seeing something that wasn't there before. We're just noticing it for the first time. And this, I love this car example because that's so tangible. We can do this in our daily life with all kinds of things. For me, the new car example, yes. And also, if you ever played punch buggy with your siblings or your children, all of a sudden that is the only car you ever see. And then you have a lot of bruises as a result. But so that process works in a lot of ways. But the really, really exciting thing to me is that this doesn't just work with the tangible things that we visually see. It works with the internal stuff too, the things that we experience and we notice over and over again. So I notice people will say, gosh, I just have the worst luck. This just keeps happening to me. This keeps happening to me. And this process that we're going to walk through is I'm going to say simple, but not always easy way to process through things that we keep noticing in our lives that we maybe don't want anymore, right? We don't want to experience that feeling. And really what that comes down to is it's not necessarily changing the experience from happening. It's changing, as Erin said, our perception of how we feel about it. And that's really the key. We're not going to, we don't change the cars on the road, right? We change what we notice. We're going to do the same thing with our stressors, right? We're going to talk about what is stressing us, what we're noticing, and how we can shift what we notice to something a little more positive. And when I say positive, we're not talking about that toxic positivity where we just, wash everything with happiness. We're talking about really making a true energetic shift so some things just don't affect us the same way they used to. So what I want you to do, if you have your notebook, your workbook handy, bring it up. If not, no big deal. You can just make notes about this. But I want you to start thinking about 3 to 5 things that have stressed you out recently. And it could be anything. I'd love for you to think of something pretty straightforward because that's easiest to work with. But think of some things that are a little more challenging too, because we can work with all of them. And I would love it if you put some examples in the comments. That would be great. While you're thinking about that, I'll tell you my example, and it's still related to cars. I have worked for years to be as zen as possible, right? I meditate and I do all of this stress relief and balancing, and I work really hard at this because this has been such a thing for me for years of really being wound tightly. But I do notice when I get in my car, I am so subject to road rage, right? That is my advice, I guess, in a way. Like, I can be zen in so many situations. I get in the car and somebody pulls out in front of me and I'm like, rah, 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 yelling at them. Not that they can hear me, thank goodness. And I notice, of course, what that does to me is it evokes the stress response, right? I get wound up, I get adrenaline going. And once I come down for that, I'm like, why do you get so mad at them? Like, they don't know you. You have no idea what's going on in their life. But we'll get to that step next. So that's the first one. I want you to make a list of things that you notice that recently, this can be past things that happen maybe you notice on a regular basis. Like I said, road rage. But make a specific example of it if you can. Not just general, say like I was in the car the other day and this lady pulled out in front of me, and I got really mad at her and yelled, and my kids were in the car, and that was embarrassing. And like I said, if you could share an example, that would be great. That would help us have some conversation about it, and we can help you walk through it as we go. And as you're making that list, I'm going to invite you to go ahead and do step 2 as well, which is for each one of those that you list, think about why it impacted you the way it did, or how it impacted you, right? So what was the reaction you had? So in my example, I'm driving down the road and somebody pulls out in front of me, and my reaction is to yell to nobody, right? To yell to whoever's in the car with me about this person. My adrenaline gets going. I have that adrenaline rush that happens when you're wound up. I get angry. I get angry. Trying to think of some others. Those are the main ones. I guess it depends on the situation and how bad it is. Usually it's all just me. I have shame afterwards, right? So I have a little shame that I have reacted in that way. So yours are going to be different depending on what they are. All right, so I'm not seeing any comments, and that's okay. But if you have an example you'd like to share, I'd love to talk through it with you. Maybe you're saving the harder ones for me and Erin. Unemployment. Why didn't I at least get an interview? Okay, yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, okay, good example. So we're going to walk through this. Do you have, and I just see Facebook user, so sorry, I would love to use your name if you don't mind sharing, but can you give us a couple examples too of in this situation, how did this affect you? What was your reaction as a stressful event for you?
And Ashley, that is Lori. I'm monitoring the Facebook as you speak as well.
Thank you so much. Hi, Lori. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. And if you have some examples, but in the meantime, sorry, if you have, if for the others who are still working through this, the third step then is after you have listed out some stressful events, and then you kind of processing, how you reacted to those. The third step in this is to reframe it, consciously reframe it, right? And the reason we do it this way, and I'll give an example here in a second, because I definitely want you all to practice this. But the reason we do it this way is as Erin said, we are reprogramming how we think about things. So we have a natural reaction to certain things. We have something that comes up, and we have a learned response that says, I get mad at this, and I do it over and over again. And like I said, I get shame after I do it because I know I don't really want to react that way, and yet I do. So what this process of taking something that's already happened, examining it, and then saying, how can I react differently? It helps us build a muscle memory for how we want to do things different. So it's really hard to shift your behavior in the moment if you don't have the practice at doing it, or you don't have a thought around how it could look different. So this car example is a really simple one. It's a lot more straightforward than some of these other examples that we might come up with. But for me, what I try to remind myself about when somebody goes and cuts me off in the car is I make up a story, to be honest with you. I will often be like, well, and I'll make up something outlandish that makes me feel compassionate. So, for example, I used to work downtown, so that was just a nightmare, right? People cut me off all the time, but my story was maybe he's taking his wife to the hospital to have a baby, right? So they're in a hurry and they didn't mean to cut me off, but they were, they have their own little world emergency thing going on. And what that does for me, and this is going to be different for everybody, is it makes me, like I said, it elicits compassion. It makes me feel like, okay, well, I understand that situation. I have empathy and compassion for that situation. Now, is it a lie? It might be a lie. It might actually be a lie. Does it matter, right? That person, and whatever reason that they did their thing, assuming in this example, that it's a person that created this problem, that's on them. The reasons for why they did what they did really aren't ours, right? We're probably never going to know. I'm never going to see that person in the car, most likely. But how I'm reacting does affect me. My stories that I tell myself help me shift out of that anger, shame mode, and it puts me into a different frame of mind. And when I practice that on a regular basis, I can thwart this road rage immediate response when it happens. All right, so we're getting some responses, and I believe this is probably from Lori. We've gone with other people, but then I see the same position posted after a while. It makes me think, WTF, right? And so I see your other one. The story I tell myself is that I'm not worthy. Yeah, not just the job in general. Okay, this is a really, really good example, Lori. And I'm wondering if if you've done the reframing piece, how you might have reframed this for yourself. And I know we've done some work around this kind of thing in a group that we're in together. So I'm guessing you have some ideas. But if you don't, let me know, and I think we can work on this together. But I'd like to see if you have an example for yourself too, because that's going to be the most powerful, right? What you come up for yourself is going to be what helps you. And while you're thinking about that, I want to read Jennifer's too. Jennifer says, she's had her dad's burial and celebration of life, and she's anxious about how she will deal. So in this case, since this is something that's coming up and you haven't experienced it yet, I would encourage you, Jennifer, to think of another example of where you have had something where you were anxious about how you were going to deal with the situation, especially if it was something like a funeral or another related type that brings up similar emotions for you. And think about that, and think about how you could have reframed that at the time. And if you don't have an example of that, the other alternative I would say is to kind of think through, okay, how are you feeling? When you say anxious, what does that look like for you? How does that stress feel like? And then think about how you could reframe that. Okay, you said it was Saturday, so you've already had relief and also teary, relief, and happy memories. Yeah. So I think this is a good example of looking backwards also at something and saying it was anxious for you ahead of it, and then you had it, and you had some relief, some happy moments, and then do a little comparison about the anticipation versus the reality, and how you can use that learning when future anxiety situations come up. Maybe, and I don't know this is true for you, this is obviously, a very personal situation that we don't hopefully have to deal with on a regular basis, but anxiety comes up a lot, so for a lot of people. So maybe it's a situation where you constantly have anxiety and you always approach it in a certain way, but with this anxiousness about how you're going to deal, but then you have now you've seen that you really deal with it pretty well. So next time you start feeling anxious, you can bring the reframing is, okay, but the last time I was worried about this and none of that happened. So that's just a thought. I don't know if that resonates with you. Okay. So Lori, I think this is Lori's again. It's just not the right job. This is your reframing, right? It's just not the right job for me. The job that's right will appear. The universe or God has a plan. I just need to keep applying to positions that speak to me. Yeah, that's a really good way to reframe. And I think, Yeah, it's just not the right job for me. I think that's a really good way to do it. I don't think I have anything to add to that. That's good. Um,
I
when
can
and
give an example of what I've done in a similar
yeah, that would
situation,
be great.
Ashley.
Yes, please.
So for me, when I'm reframing, when I've, had an interview and I think it went really well and it's a job that I want, the best thing for me to do is, Ashley, I'm going to mute you, is to say, if they didn't resonate with me, then likely I would have been unhappy in that situation. There's a reason why they didn't resonate with me, whether it's the culture that would have been a bad fit, or, maybe they didn't feel that I had the right personality to be an integral component of the team. So I try to think of it that way. I think, it's not the right job for me is a great option too, but it's not just about the job, it's also about the people. Maybe you wouldn't have gotten along with the people and they recognized that. And so it needs to be not just the right job, but also the right people to work with and the right culture of the organization that we need to work with.
Yeah, that's also about on the flip side of that, where I was, I did get a job one time and I spent a good year telling everybody, I don't know why they hired me. I don't know why they hired me. And finally, somebody said, maybe they didn't hire you as much for your skill set as for the fact that you were a good fit. They felt like you would fit in with the organization. And it just never occurred to me that was part of it. That could be part of it. They would have just hired for that purpose. And I think that's kind of that reverse of looking at, something even good can cause stress, and yet reframing it in, oh, maybe there was something more to it that I don't see and I don't have to see. And I think that's an important piece of all of this. And when I talk about making up a story, sometimes it's okay to make up a story that makes us feel better, as long as it's not creating bigger problems for us, right? We don't want to create a fantasy, but the story's about the other person, not about us, so it kind of tricks our reaction into something less triggering. Yeah. Okay, so I'm looking through the comments, see if there's anything else. Okay, yeah, Jennifer says, turns out that it was okay and you helped others with it. Yeah, that's a really great opportunity to take the reframing for yourself and then apply it to helping others too. And it turned out to be not as scary. Yeah, I get that. Okay, any other examples or something that you're stuck on that you might like some help in terms of this reframing concept? And I know there's a bit of a delay, so that's okay if it comes in. What I would encourage you to do is, this is an ongoing process. Like I said, it's a relearning and a relearning and a relearning. And it's easiest, of course, to apply it to simple, straightforward, kind of tangible things. It gets better for us to apply it for things that are a little more complicated, like the examples that maybe Jennifer gave and Lori. But those are where the real meat is, right? That's where we really get deep into shifting the energy around something, not just in that one example, but ongoing. Okay, so we have another example here, weight gain during the pandemic. Okay, so that's a stressor. And do you mind to share, whoever this Facebook user is, how that was stressful for you? I think I could guess, but I would like to not necessarily assume things about what that means for you.
This is Lori again, Ashley.
Oh, okay. Hey, Lori. Sorry. I just see Facebook user. So, yeah, okay. And if you have some things to share there, Lori, I will just say, I think I've heard this one a lot. So I'm not applying this to you specifically, but I do think for a lot of people, it becomes it's a stressor because it's uncomfortable physically. I think it's a stressor because mentally we put a lot of baggage on ourselves around weight and what that should be. Watching commercials about weight loss. Yeah. So I'm interested to know how you have reframed this, um, the stress around this, if you don't mind sharing. And if you haven't yet, that's okay. I think we can kind of talk through this. But I'm curious what you have to say too, or if others have examples. So I think one of the power of this practice too is, yes, we do it individually, but I think doing it with others in groups and in women's circles and different things like that, friends, doing it with your friends, you get some new ideas, new perspectives that you wouldn't have had just from, you know, your own mind, because we don't know what we don't know, right?
Ashley, may I chime in on this one as well?
Absolutely.
So this is something, Lori, that I've been dealing with also. I had a baby right before the start of the pandemic, and I have been unable to lose any baby weight. I am 40 pounds heavier than I was when I had my first baby. And this has been a real struggle for me because I expected that that baby weight would just come off. And it absolutely has not. And one of the things that I've realized, and I see you're commenting on here as well, I'm alive. This isn't about coming out cute during a pandemic. Exactly. Yes. I love that reframing. And Ashley will probably have some comments on that as well. For me, my biggest way to reframe is, so I'm certified as an ULA life coach, and we talk about the 7 key areas of life and making sure that those 7 key areas are properly balanced. And those are family, friends, finance, fitness, field, and fun. And I feel like I'm forgetting one. Feel like that was only 6, but so fitness is included in there, and that includes not only physical capability and weight, but it also includes our diet and our mental health. And for me, I have had to shift majorly focus on my mental health during this pandemic. And I realized that this was a season where I needed to put my weight aside and focus on other areas within that realm that needed more balance than my weight. And so that has been the reframing for me of, it's okay because I'm using the time that I may use for, physical activity and losing weight and focusing it instead on my mental health. Because let's be honest, if we're not in a good mental space, then we're also incapable of losing weight. There's a lot that plays into weight loss, and our cortisol levels from anxiety and stress, if those are not balanced out and our mental health is not where it should be, then that cortisol is going to keep us from losing weight. So for me, that's been it. I'm like, okay, I need to focus on this before I focus on this, because this is not going to work if I don't fix this first. So that's been my reframing and my particular example. So Ashley, I'll let you chime in and give feedback on Lori about being alive.
Right. Yeah. I think that was brilliant. I hesitate to stop a little bit to talk too much specifically about weight loss because it's not been a personal problem of mine, but what came up for me as you were talking, Erin, and as I was thinking more about Lori's comment, is this what we did yesterday around the shoulds, right? We have a lot of thoughts around, I think all of us, around physical shoulds. I should be thinner, I should be eating better, I should be exercising more. And while on paper all those things are true, like Erin said, there are a lot of things that play into our whys, our coulds, right? Like then when we switch it over to coulds and then the why haven't I, that's really where a lot of this becomes so much clearer to us around what's the right next step? How do we reframe this from a body thing to a bigger picture, holistic thing, whole life type of looking at it, right? And I think, Lori, you make a really excellent point here. That's the reframing. Yes, I could be doing some more exercise. I could be doing some more things around this weight. And the reframing is, I'm still alive. I'm not trying to come out cute. That doesn't mean I don't put some focus around weight loss or health in general or whatever other pieces are important, but it is about prioritizing what is most important. And I think sometimes it's simply like you said, I'm alive. None of us are coming out of this necessarily, in a beauty pageant. We're trying to get through something we've never, personally experienced before. So really, it takes it right back to that balance piece, which is what the whole reason that we're talking about this today. So I really appreciate that comment, and yours too, Erin. So does anybody have any other comments or feedback that they'd like to jump in here while you have us here? All right. Well, there might be a delay, but it looks like we're wrapping up a little bit. And like I said, this activity is something that I encourage you to do ongoing. Anytime you have something that really sets you off, it stresses you out, and especially if you really don't want to feel that way again, right? If it's something that you notice coming up a lot, and you're like, I really want to make this stop, or I don't want to feel like this anymore, that's when this activity becomes really powerful, because just write it out, write how you felt, and then reframe it in any way that makes you feel better. And you may have to practice with this. The first reframing may not work. Telling the silly story about the guy, taking his wife to the hospital, that might not work for you. You might have to find something else that really moves that energy for you. But the good news is, as you continue to practice this, like I said, you build that muscle memory. If you've written it down and you've kind of mentally practiced it, when it actually happens in real life, that's when something in your head eventually goes, hold on, this is that experience that I practiced before, and we talked about it in this class with Ashley and Erin, and now it's actually happening, and here's how I can think about it a little differently. Of course, I encourage you to reach out to me or Erin, either one, or post in the group about situations that are coming up, because as I said, sometimes that group effort is so important to help give you new ideas and new thoughts about how you can just see something differently. And like I said, once we start to change the way we look at things, those things still keep coming, but we're seeing them differently. We experience them differently. And that's really the goal here. It's not to stop all stress, because, that's just the definition of life, but it's really to get in a better place about how we experience it. Do you have anything else to add, Erin, before we wrap up for the day?
So just a few administrative items to kind of paraphrase everything we talked about. So this is a wonderful way to connect, right? So we've cleared, now we're connecting, we're kind of becoming more in tune with our body. We're connecting with our body. We're realizing what we see and what our perceptual lens has been built to perceive. And now we're working on reframing that and rebuilding that perceptual lens so that it's in alignment with our goals and our desired outcomes. So I've really enjoyed the examples. I think they've been great. Thank you, everyone who's been chiming in. Again, be interactive. Even if you're watching the replay, do #replay. Keep the comments coming. We'll be monitoring that for, probably at least a week, if not more, because every time you comment, it bumps it up to the top and we see it again and we get that notification. But I also encourage every one of us who would like to dig into this deeper to go ahead and reach out to us. Let us know that you'd like to chat a little bit further. We are happy to do that. We are creating space and freeing our time to be able to support everybody who's involved in this course. And you can either do that via Facebook, you can reach out via Messenger. If you know us personally, you can text us. You can reply to the text that you received as a reminder to hop onto these live events. But this is also right here below is our website, intuitiveleadershipcenter.com. And then the contact page is where you can book a call directly with us. And that will schedule a 30-minute free coaching call with us. We may reach out to you to ask for clarification on whom you would like to speak with, whether it's myself or Ashley or a combination, or it doesn't matter. You can feel free to do that and let us know in the comments when you book that. All right. And Kathy's just hopping on. Thanks, Kathy.
Hey.
I'm going to add you to the screen. Hi. We are just about to wrap up, but I'd like to welcome you.
Perfect timing, right? Sorry.
Yeah. Hey, that's okay. No, we have the replay. We have a recording of all of this, but it doesn't matter. We can hold space for you now.
Yeah, so Erin, that's what I'm
we're
planning
here.
on doing, is watching the replay. I just didn't know how long they were, and then I saw the text after I got out of my meeting, and I was like, oh, well, let me hop on and see if it's still going.
Honestly, they're as long as we need them to be. And tonight or today, we kind of, wrapped up a little bit, just a little bit shorter than we did yesterday, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be like that. So good.
Okay.
I encourage you to hop on whenever you can.
All right. So I didn't see yesterday's because I was working, and it was crazy mad yesterday. Oh my gosh. Bad day in the hospital. Not good.
Oh no.
Yeah, it was one of those days. So where do I watch yesterday?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can watch it directly in my group.
Okay.
The Evolve with Erin Myers. I also have it on my YouTube channel really, those are the two places and then Ashley's group as well. So if you registered, which I believe you did, Kathy, then you should have the emails.
I have not. No, I'm not.
That's okay. That's okay. So in the emails, if you want to go back and look for the email from the Intuitive Leadership Center, it has a link to both of our groups. And then you know how to get in contact with me too. And I can tag you actually in this recording in my group.
Yes. And I know I have the book, and I have not downloaded that yet, which I need to do.
That's okay. That's okay. Take a deep breath. And, you can go back and watch these at any point in time. And they do stack on each other to a certain extent, but you can also hop in.
The first one first.
Well, you can also hop into day 2, or day 3 if you don't get a chance to do it this afternoon.
And tomorrow
or this
I won't
evening.
be able to hop on either because I have a challenge up at the hospital, so I'll be busy with that.
That's fine. Just watch us when you can. And I think it'll help with some of the stress and anxiety from the last few days.
The things the founders put on about, but it doesn't really give me the nuts and bolts about what the company is. It's more kind of always their story about why they're doing it. So that's not giving me information that's particularly useful for me. So.
All right. I'm going to tag you in a couple videos.
Okay.
I'll tag you in the recording from day 1. And I'll tag you in this recording as well. And then I'll tag you in some additional information that I think would be beneficial to you.
And I can probably, I have a lot of miles driving to appointments today. We have a lot of medical stuff going on. So I'll have car time.
Perfect. That's a great time to listen.
Yes, that's when I
and
do most of my listening.
You can mentally do the exercises. You don't necessarily need the workbook to go along with it. So
okay,
no big deal.
All right.
Okay, perfect.
Go back to you and have your time.
Yes, you drive safely, and I'll tag you in those videos. I've got one in particular I'm going to ask you to prioritize. Okay. I think it'll be good for you. So awesome. I'll send that your way, Kathy. Thanks for hopping on.
Okay. Bye, guys.
Bye. All right. I love that. We got StreamYard bombed by Kathy there. And that you are all welcome in this virtual space, so that we can all see you and interact. So feel free to hop on at any point in time. All right. What else was I going to say? It will be a different link for tomorrow, so be on the lookout. That will be in the email. After this recording is closed, after we end this broadcast, we can't reopen it because it can't recreate a new recording under the same link. So that's why there's a new link for every single day. So make sure you hop into the email or into the text message or the link in the group to join us for tomorrow at 12 Eastern. Same time, same place, kind of, different link. And we will be talking about creating. Right, Ashley, anything to add?
I think that is it. Go out, practice reframing. I would love to see some of your ahas around that in the group. You can just post it in the chat or in the comments. It would be lovely. And if there's something you get stuck on, I'd be happy to help. Can't wait to see you guys tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
Yeah.